Yes, are you saying something? I'm not able to hear you.
Sir, I will rejoin.
Yes, sure. Rejoin. Yes, Rabia, continue.
Yes, sir. Then we also discussed about the advantages and disadvantages of amniocentesis. The advantage is that through amniocentesis, we can know any genetic disorder developing in the fetus, and the disorder is that it can reveal the gender identity of the developing embryo, and it can lead to increased female feticide. Then,
Yes,
if we ban amniocentesis, then the female feticide can be prevented. Then
perfect.
we discussed about the sex determination in humans. Y chromosome is the smallest chromosome, and testes is the determining factor.
The testis determining factor is present on Y chromosome. That is one of the most crucial genes which is present on Y chromosome. So I gave you the example of this gene TDF, testis determining factor, in humans to tell you that why this chromosome, which is the smallest chromosome called as Y chromosome, is important. So it's important for development of the male secondary sexual characters and the primary sexual organs of the male body. Is that clear, Rabia?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so Mariam has joined. Mariam, can you hear us now? Are we audible to you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so Rabia is giving a quick recap of the last class, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good evening, Iram.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, okay. Rabia, continue.
Yes, sir. Then the visual typing of chromosome is called karyotyping. It consists of two words. Karyo means nucleus and typing means analysis. Then we discussed STDs, also called sexually transmitted diseases. For example, AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. It is caused by HIV, human immunodeficiency virus,
Perfect.
human immunovirus. Then
No, you are right.
AIDS.
Human immunodeficiency virus. It's
Okay,
human,
so
yeah, human immunodeficiency virus. Human immunovirus makes no sense, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like it's HIV, so I thought deficiency is not there.
yeah. Immunodeficiency is there in I. Then yeah, you're right. Then we should call AIS, but we call it AIDS. It's okay. Acronyms are named like that so that it's easier to pronounce. HIV, AIDS, AIMS, NEAT, like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Then we discussed about various ways about the various ways STD like AIDS can spread.
Spread.
The,
Yes.
yeah, the first one is blood transfer. If the blood is not properly checked before the transfer, then it can lead to AIDS. Um, Then STDs, we wrote the definition. These are the diseases which can be transferred through sexual contact of sexual body fluids. Then we differentiated between STDs and RTI. RTI is reproductive tract infection. And one of the examples for RTI is genital herpes, syphilis, and gonorrhea. Then we also wrote a question. Every RTI is STD, but all STDs are not RTI.
Right.
And the answer for it is STD, like AIDS, do not infect the reproductive tract. On the other hand, RTIs, like genital herpes, are also transmitted through intercourse, and they
Yeah.
are
So the
STDs.
question was justify the statement. Right. That was the
Yes,
question.
sir.
Yeah. The statement that you just read, the question was to justify it. Then you can write that in its justification that every RTI is a STD. It can be sexually transmitted, But every sexually transmitted infection or every STI is not a RTI. It can be AIDS also, because AIDS is not a RTI, but it is a STD. Okay, or hepatitis B is
Yes,
not a
sir.
RTI, but it is a STD. Yes, and that's where we end, right? We stopped
Yes,
last time.
sir.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Rabia, for the amazing recap. Now let's move forward
Sir,
from yes. You have a question?
I have a weird doubt.
Yes, yes. No doubt is weird, and all doubts are weird actually.
In the previous class, you said that by banning amniocentesis, female feticide can be prevented.
Mm,
But what if they kill the female infant, like after they're
right,
born? Like, what's the point of it? What's the point of banning amniocentesis when they're gonna kill the
right,
fetus as well?
right. You that's a very concerning doubt. It's not weird, but it's very important a doubt, especially when many of you will grow to become not just doctors or physicians, but also policymakers, and also go into law in the medical field and all. You will realize it's a difficult, it's a social ill, like it's a social illness, it's a social disease where all sorts of crimes against humanity are social disorders in a way. But you're right. The point is, we cannot prevent a female in infanticide even if we ban amniocentesis, correct? But we can make it a little difficult for the criminals, right? See, a criminal will cause crime, right? You cannot just 1 second. Yes, thank you. Cool, thank you. Manan, थोड़ा ज़्यादा. हाँ, cool. Yeah, sorry, my flatmate. Yes, so you're right. The doubt is very genuine, but here the point is what we can do scientifically to not make it very easy. So our rules and regulations in a society are to prevent as much as we can. For example, law enforcement is done to prevent certain crimes. Similarly, people realize that this technique is a brilliant technique that scientists developed. You see, it's like a miraculous technique where before you can even see the child and the organs of the child developing, even in the first week of pregnancy itself, when the baby has no form and the baby is no big than a grain of rice, you can actually know everything about the baby's genome. That's an amazing thing, right? An amazing feat that scientists figured out, and we can know, right? Don't you think it's an amazing thing?
Yes, sir.
But the problem is, everything which science develops can be used, most of the things, not everything, can be used for doing bad as well. For example, in physics, we know about nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion generates a lot of energy. Now, it can be used in a very good will to produce clean energy, but it can also be used to make atomic bombs. Similarly, this test can be used to figure out genetic disorders, either try to figure out what can be done before the baby starts suffering from that, or we can just abort the baby so that we do not, the mothers do not give birth to a disformed, disfigured baby who's suffering from some very deadly disease and then die within some weeks of birth. So although all that can be prevented, but also the same thing can be used to know the gender, and it becomes very easy if you know if a society is biased against females, and if they have all the access to know the gender right in the birth, in the first week or the second week, it will become very easy for them to do female feticide, right? All they have to do is to get these medical pregnancy medical termination MTP kits, medical termination of pregnancy kits, then take that, and because the embryo is just very tiny, it will just bleed out like a menstrual flow, so that's called abortion. But it's difficult to abort a child after, you know, 1 trimester, and it's even difficult to kill a child and go away without getting punished when the child is born. You understand? But still,
Yes, sir.
if a criminal wants to do a crime, I don't think on earth you can just stop it from doing the crime. You can just punish the criminal and make the laws stricter so that it doesn't become very easy to get away with these things. It's really easy to get away if amniocentesis is legal. Anyone can go and do it. And if a society is biased against women, they will just get away with these things very easily in the first week itself. Okay, because no one will know. You understand? That's why amniocentesis is banned. Do you see the purpose now? Do you think that it is helpful now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll take from here and yes, you know.
Also, can I on my account? Is the feature?
Yes, the spotlight feature is on. Yes. Do you have a doubt also?
No, I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much for at least. I love to see someone live instead of just me myself and the screen. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll take care. I'll take from here, and in today's class we will be talking about first the problem that why family planning commission first came into existence, like so that people can be made more aware about planning a family, you know, regulating population. Now, why is population a problem? The question is, population is a boon or a bane? What do you think? Is population a good thing, human population, or a bad thing? What will you say? Anyone? Come on. Mariam, Rabia, Iram. Human population is good or bad? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, Iram. Can see. So what do you think, Iram? Is population good or bad? Seeing so many people around, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Going to a class where there are 50 people, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing. Why? You don't like so many people around, right?
Yes, sir. I like to be alone, not surrounded by
Okay.
people.
Too many people. Okay, so population clearly for you is a bad thing, right? So kind of you. Okay, but also imagine, like, if there's no population at all, then who's going to produce medicines for you? Who's going to print these books that we are studying? Who's going to make these laptops that we buy and connect with, you know, to do classes? So we need some amount of people around us to do things for us, and we do things for them. That's how society function, right, Rabia? If you're alone, you just have to go to a jungle, find fruits and eat and sleep on a tree trunk, because you need someone to build your house. You need someone, you know, to set up cities, to run a government, etc., etc. So population is not that bad a thing. What is problematic is this.
Overpopulation.
Yes, Mariam, perfect. Overpopulation is bad. Now, what do we mean by overpopulation, Mariam, since you brought this point? How will you decide that a population is now overpopulation?
Overpopulation, like too much of population.
Yes, how will you define that too much? Like, for example, I ask you, do you think there are too much people in your city? Or you think that more people can still, you know, be accommodated?
Here, there is
Yeah, wherever you are, like if I ask you that, do you think there are too much people in your city and it should not increase, or do you think it's okay, the people are decent, but we can still accommodate a lot of people?
it's okay, sir.
It's okay. So how did you decide that it's okay? There must be some criteria, right, in your head? You went ahead and counted everyone in the city and then divided it by the total surface area and realized that everyone is getting some amount of land and that's why it's okay? Or what? Like, what did you do in your mind?
That's simply like it good thing. I have seen so many people over here, not so congested, so it's fine.
So congestion is one, right? People, so one, yeah, very good. So Mariam, what Mariam is indirectly pointing towards, one very good criteria is to know number of people per unit area, right? So if there are too many, you will see too many high-rise buildings, people living, at multiple floors, and streets are always crowded, supermarkets are always crowded. Wherever you go, you will see too many people. That's a normal scenario in all the metropolitan metropolis cities and international cities and industrial cities. But more than that, when we decide overpopulation, especially for humans, we decide it on the basis of resource availability and resource constraint. So humans use a lot of things to survive. Water, food, shelter, clothes are basic requirements. From science point of view, medicine, hospital beds, availability to services like doctors, plumbers, electricians, all these are also there. Availability to transport. So all of these we take into consideration, and we realize out of these things, whatever are dependent on natural sources, most of which are. So for example, food is getting a scarcity over time. So there are certain areas of the planet where people are starving, whereas there are certain areas of the planet where people are just wasting food, because they have plenty on their plate. So they will just take a bite and decide, oh, this bread is not so good, so let's throw it. But there are places where people are not getting that bread at all. There are places where people are not getting water. So reason is, first is unequal distribution, but second is, even at a place where there is plenty of resources, how long a population can feed on it and how difficult it is to renew it. All these factors are taken into consideration, and then we come with a number known as it's called the I forgot the term, what it's called, maximum carrying capacity. This term you must have read in your ecology. I'm just connecting two things here before I go forward to deal with population. So maximum carrying capacity can be counted for every species on the planet, okay, depending on what that species utilizes from the nature. For example, if we are talking about a lake ecosystem, there will be fish in the lake and there will be predators that feed on that fish. Now, if you have too much predators, they will just eat up all the fish. They will deplete the fish faster than it can grow back, and that will end all the fish. And then when all the fish are over, the predators also finally will die because of starvation, right? Because there's nothing for them to eat. Same rule applies in a jungle. So whenever we talk about ecology and wildlife, we always see the balance between the prey and the predators. That's called prey-predator relationship. It's very important to conserve tiger. It's very important to conserve deer, and it's very important to conserve plants to conserve deers, and it's very important to conserve the water cycle and the soil microbes to conserve plants. So everything is interdependent. So maximum carrying capacity for humans can also be calculated, and we are reaching that capacity very, very fast. In the last 100 years, there is a population explosion that has happened in every part of the world. There are certain parts of the world where population has declined a bit, but it's not helping the planet as a whole. So overpopulation is a bad thing. It's a bane, okay? And one way to tackle overpopulation is to prevent unplanned childbirth, unplanned birth. Now, to prevent unplanned birth, you have to prevent unplanned pregnancy, because we cannot just start killing babies that we don't want here. So that's unethical. That's exactly what we are talking against. Instead, what we can do is we can prevent conceiving of the pregnancy to happen when a couple is not planning to have a kid. And if we have methods to do that, every family can plan that we just need 2 kids or 1 kid, and that's how we will achieve it. And after we have achieved 2 kids, we can just prevent all other unwanted pregnancies, which was not possible in previous times, like in our grandfathers and generation before. So how can we prevent unplanned birth? For that, in biology, we have to, after understanding chapter 3, we learned there is a way through which pregnancy occurs. And the most important point is for a fusion of male and the female gamete. So if we can biologically prevent that fusion from happening, okay, with some surety, of course, then we can prevent pregnancy from happening. So then was devised the term contraception. Now the word contraception again can be defined just by the word. Ception comes from the word conception or inception. So conception, let's say, or conceive. Conceive means when the pregnancy is conceived. And contra, you must have heard this word contra, like contradictory. Something is contradictory to what you are saying or you are believing. So it's opposite or against. Against is better here. So it's against. So this whole method is against conception. So something that do not allow female system to conceive a pregnancy. Now, what could it be? So right from the beginning of these methods, they are divided into two parts. One is called the natural methods. And this part especially is very important because a lot of questions, fact-based entrance questions comes from this part. So they will take a particular method and ask you what type of method is this, on what logic it works, etc., etc. So natural methods and artificial methods. Okay, now let's first talk about natural methods of contraception. Before that, let's define contraception. Write down. Contraception is defined as methods to prevent pregnancy and childbirth, unwanted pregnancy and childbirth. Methods to prevent unwanted pregnancy is enough. If you write just unwanted pregnancy, that's enough. And what is the advantage? This helps in effective family planning. This helps in effective family planning. And also population control. And also population control. Is that clear? Now, first write down natural methods. Okay, before we go to natural methods, write down one more question which was asked in boards. Question is, what are the characteristics of an ideal contraception method or an ideal contraceptive? Whatever method we use, it is called a contraceptive. It could be a drug, it could be a method, anything. So what do you think should be the characteristics of an ideal contraceptive? Whenever we say something ideal, it should be something which does not harm the system and fulfills its motive to 100% efficiency. So the ideal contraceptive should first be user friendly, right? Yes or no? So whoever is using it It should be very easy to use it. It should not be very complicated, something where you have more chances to mess it up and it can then affect you negatively. You understand? It should be very simple thing that you take this tablet and it helps, or you get this thing implanted in your body and it helps. It should not be something very, very complicated like a open heart surgery kind of a method, right? Because if it is not user, yes. Anyone has a question?
No, sir.
Yeah. Because if it's not user friendly, it will not become popular. If it is not popular, people will not accept it. And the whole point of it being a contraceptive will fail, because if people will not use it, what is the point of developing a contraceptive, right? Population will still keep rising. So first it should be user friendly. And then second, what do you think? We have to make more and more people use it. So what should be the other criteria? It should be very, yes. Iram, you want to say something?
It should be easy to use,
Yeah, that's what user friendly is, easy to use.
or maybe it should be with least side effects.
Perfect. So it should have least side effect or no side effect at all. Least side effect, right? If it is a chemical method, it will have some side effects. It cannot have zero side effects for sure, because biology works in multiple ways. And yeah, every medicine has some or the other least to max side effects, depend on how important it is to take that medicine. But yes, the least the side effect, the better it is. Very good point. Third, do you think it should also be very easily available? You don't have to go to some other city to get it. If it is very difficult to acquire, again, it can't become popular, it can't reach the masses, and people will not use it effectively, and the whole purpose will be failed. So it will be easily available, right? And what else?
Cost also should be cost effective.
Yes, in easily available, let's say we have easily available or economically feasible. It shouldn't be very, very costly a method or costly a thing, right? So that again, people will not accept it. Second is it should be effective, right? It should be effective, and also it should be reversible. Why reversible? Because that is the whole point of planning a family. Let's say there's a newly wed couple who doesn't want to have a kid for the first 5 years. So they decide to choose an ideal contraceptive for their family planning, which is effective for 5 years. But after 5 years, they do want to expand a family and want to have a kid. Now, if the contraceptive is not reversible, then there's no point of taking it, because you can never be 100% sure ki, okay, I don't want a kid at all now, unless and until you are old, right? So it should be reversible. Ideal contraceptive should be reversible, that when you want it to be prevent pregnancy, it should prevent pregnancy. When you don't want it to prevent pregnancy, it should just not do anything with your reproductive system, and you can just go on to have a normal pregnancy, right? So that is one thing. Another important thing is, which is from a human's physiology perspective, is it should have no side effect, or sorry, it should have no effect at all on the sexual drive, right? No effect, or you can say interference on sexual drive, or we can say the sexual act, right? It should not hinder the normal life of a human, right? So these are all the characteristics of an ideal contraceptive. Now, as I will teach you about different types of contraceptives, keep all these points in mind, and in your mind, keep asking yourself do you think this method is near an ideal contraceptive or not? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I want everything that I will teach you now, you keep giving them, grading them on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is the ideal. Okay, what do you think? At the end, I will ask you what you have graded. Is it okay, Rabia, Mariam, and Niram? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will only ask you at the end when we'll finish, but keep grading it. So let's start with natural methods of contraception. Perfect. So in natural methods, first of all, for every method, we will see what principle it works on. So what is the principle on which natural methods work on? It works on avoidance principle. Avoidance of what? Avoidance of fusion, okay, of gametes. So this is what is the principle behind it. For different type of methods, there will be different principles. Now, if you are working on this principle and the method has to be natural, which means what is a natural method? No use of chemical, right? Or any instrument or device, right? Where we don't use any of this, that's natural. So the first way is called periodic abstinence. It is simply based on the knowledge that we have gathered and we have studied about it in the last class of the female menstrual cycle. Now, if I ask you, in a 28-day cycle of the female that we studied in the last class, which days are the most vulnerable for pregnancy? Like which days have the highest chance of pregnancy? What will you tell me? You have to give a range, not an exact date. We know that ovulation happen on 14th day, correct? So what will be the range? Which days will have the highest chance of pregnancy? Anyone? Now this number is based on logic. Yes, Iram.
So I think 15 to 29.
15 to 29, you say. Okay, what's your logic
It's just a
behind?
guess.
Yeah, but you must have thought about something, no? Because why you decided 15 and 29 is my question. So can you justify why 15 to 29? Is your rational because, see, anyways, before 15 days, there is no ovum present.
Because the ovum is almost formed, right? So it's ready to.
So
Yeah.
so it's a very good hypothesis. So your argument is that ovulation happen on 14th day, right? So for 15 onward, 15th day, it is inside the fallopian tube, let's say. So it is very, very easily accessible to all the sperms and it can get fertilized, right? Very good. It's a very, very valid assumption. Anyone else would like to say something different? Or both of you, Rabia and Mariam, agree with Iram? So 14th day onward, she is right. My question, so there will be two questions that I will ask. My question was, which days have the most chances of pregnancy? Sorry, I just lost internet, but I think you can still hear me, right? Yeah. So which days do you think are crucial for pregnancy? Of course, 14th day onward. Now, next question is, she's right. Next question is, which days do you think, again, a range where a married couple should prevent sexual intercourse to avoid pregnancy? Again, if you have the same answer, you can say the same answer, like from day 15 to 29 or is it different?
So avoiding pregnancy. Sorry, avoiding the intercourse.
Sexual intercourse, yes.
1 to 3 days.
1 to 3, and you know, so okay, if you avoid intercourse from day 1 to 3, first from day 1 to day 5, it's bleeding phase. So I don't think a female is ready during that bleeding phase for intercourse. It's not a good time, because lots and lots of infections can occur if a female who's undergoing the bleeding phase is also deciding to undergo intercourse. So females do not, they avoid anyways from day 1 to day 5. Doesn't make sense. Everything is there's lots of blood, there is lots of tissue, there will be lots of bacteria from the vagina and all there. So it's not good anyways, healthy for the body. So 1 to 5 anyways are gone, right? Because the bleeding phase. And technically speaking, it's the safest phase, like you're saying. If a male deposits sperm in a female tract between day 1 to 5, that sperm will just die, because everything is just coming down, right? Everything, it's bleeding. So there's no chance that the sperm will survive. So forget about that. Now tell me, when should sexual intercourse should be avoided, so that you can avoid pregnancy by some degree of confidence? See the logic, there are two things you have to think about. First logic is availability of ovum to get fertilized, right? Ovum can only be available after day 14. So you will think, okay, so when ovum is available, then sperm should not enter, right? Right? But here, let me tell you, the sperm can survive inside a female system for up to 2 to 3 days. Okay. So you also have to factor in that. So the period which should be, where sexual intercourse should be avoided, should be day 10 to 17. Because if a sperm entered the female tract on day 10, there are chances that it can survive for the next 3 days, 11, 12, and 13. And on 14th, the moment ovum is available, it can just fertilize it, right? So if you want to be safe, day 10 is 4 days before ovulation, and 17 is 3 days after ovulation. And ovum, if do not get the sperm for 2-3 days, it will degenerate. Remember, ovum cannot stay forever, okay, waiting for the sperm. So it's day 10 to 17 is the ideal time, where if sexual intercourse is avoided, then it's called periodic abstinence method, because you are utilizing a logic of ovulation cycle, when it will release, and then using that knowledge for trying to avoid fusion. So write down what is periodic abstinence. In this method, sexual intercourse, and there is a biological word for it called coitus. C-O-I-T-U-S. Coitus or sexual intercourse is the same thing. Sexual intercourse or coitus is avoided from day 10 to day 17 of the menstrual cycle. Day 10 to day 17 of the menstrual cycle. As day 10 to day 17 of the menstrual cycle, as the chances of fertilization are very high during this period. As the chances of fertilization are very high during this period. Okay. But do you think it's a let's go back to the ideal contraception thing. So it has no side effect, zero side effect, because nothing is being used, no chemicals, of course. So let's see how many criteria it fulfills. Is it user friendly? Yes, it is user friendly because it's a behavior. You have to do nothing. Does it have least side effects? Zero side effects. Easily available, economically feasible? Yes. No effect or interference on sexual drive? Yes. But is it effective? So on all other scales, you might give this natural method as 9 or 10 out of 10, let's say. But the most crucial point, which is the core of contraception, that to avoid pregnancy, it is not very effective a method. It has loopholes and it has a lot of, it's not foolproof at all. Why? Because we know now females do not strictly follow a 28-day cycle cut to cut. It is a biological system. Sometimes female cycle get delayed by a few days. Sometimes it occurs early. Very simple things like stress or the level of painkillers or caffeine in your system or stress hormones in your system or the amount of exercise you do can very easily alter menstrual cycles. So even if you calculate 10 and 17th day based on the previous cycle, there is not 100% surety that ovulation is what you are what you are calculating as day 14 is the day 14, right? Biological systems can they always work in a range. There is no fixed rigid line. As I told you, there is nothing black and white in biology. It's all in a gray zone. That's what we study. That's why it's difficult a subject. So that's why on a scale of 1 to 10 for its effectiveness, you will not grade it more than 1 or 2. So this makes it a very bad contraceptive method because it's all about it's all about you playing a game of luck, that what you are thinking as day 10 to 17 where no ovum is available and your sperms will enter and die before or after that. So that's all. So it's least side effective, but it's also not very effective a method. Okay. Now second is, first is clear, periodic abstinence is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Second is coitus interruptus. Again, in primitive world where there was no medicines, no drugs, all these methods were developed by people. You already know what does the word coitus means. Coitus means sexual intercourse. Interruptus means to interrupt in between. So coitus interruptus is a method. Write down, what does it say? In this method, by the way, this method is also called, it has a common name. Sometimes NCERT write it as the withdrawal method. Withdrawal method. Write down, in this method, the male partner withdraw the penis from the vaginal canal just before ejaculation to avoid the entry of semen in the female tract. Again, we are avoiding something. That's why it works on the same principle, and it's called the natural method. Avoiding insemination. Insemination means entry of semen in the female tract. So this is avoiding this. Now this is even better method because we already know from chapter 3 and our knowledge about the male reproductive tract, before ejaculation, a lot of things are already secreted from the glands, right? Which is called the seminal fluid. Seminal fluid is already secreting, bulbourethral fluid is already secreting. So all these are already present in the lubricating the male tract and also entering the female tract. So even if you do coitus interruptus, there is no guarantee that sperms have not entered already in the female tract. Some sperms already come out or enter the female tract with the lubricating fluid. Is that clear? Yeah. So
Yes,
coitus
sir.
interruptus is, again, it has very low effectivity. It may not work, no one knows. You cannot be 100% sure ever that because of coitus interruptus you have avoided pregnancy. So again, no side effect. It is very economical, no side effect, user friendly, easily available, economical, but effective? No, not effective. We cannot with surety say that pregnancy is avoided. So if the fourth point, by now you must have realized that it is the fourth point that holds the most weightage, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
So coitus interruptus, again, based on avoidance method, is a natural method, but not very effective. The third is, which comes under natural method, is about which I have already talked in the third chapter. That's where I keep connecting dots. It's called lactational amenorrhea. Now, who remembers this? Who remembers lactational amenorrhea? We studied lactation, right? Parturition and lactation in the last chapter. Anyone would like to tell me what is lactational amenorrhea? Remember that when after childbirth, mother's body produces lots and lots of milk, colostrum. And just after childbirth, for a few months, there is no menstrual cycle happening because it will be a dual burden on the mother's body to produce colostrum and to keep producing blood and losing the blood through menstrual cycle. So post parturition, write down lactational amenorrhea. Lactational amenorrhea is the absence of menstruation. It is the absence of menstruation post parturition. Parturition is childbirth. Absence of menstruation post parturition. RITION. Okay. So no menstruation means no oocyte release. No oocyte release means no oocyte available to be fertilized, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this period, this lactational amenorrhea is only effective to some extent up to 4 to 6 months at max. In many females, it is less than that, but 4 to 6 months, it's effective. And as you go closer to the 4th, 5th, and 6th months, you again are not sure if it is effective or not, because we are just relying on the fact that there is no menstruation happening. Okay, but the female will not know about menstruation unless and until once a whole cycle has been done and she starts to bleed. Everything that has been formed starts to fall off and she bleeds. So normally, the first marker of menstruation for a female is bleeding itself, right? There is no other marker, common visible marker, correct? So as you go closer to the 4th, 5th, and the 6th months, again, this becomes more and more blurry and less effective. So lactational amenorrhea is, again, on a scale of 1 to 10 for an ideal contraceptive, it won't go. What do you think? Okay, you keep rating then. Iram is giving some point already. What are you giving, Iram? 3? 3. Okay, Iram is giving 3 points, which is a little better than periodic abstinence and coitus interruptus, I believe, right? Okay, so coitus interruptus, I think I will, so if I will grade coitus interruptus as the least. Periodic abstinence still has some logic, so let's say it may not, but for some it might work, but still there is a lot of risk. Lactational amenorrhea, you can say that, okay, for the first 3-4 months there is no risk, but then the risk starts coming up because we don't know when the cycle will start. The female will only know if there is bleeding, and if there is no bleeding, by that time there is already pregnancy. So you will recover from one pregnancy and will go into another pregnancy, which is not a very good thing for a female. So again, it has some risks associated, but okay, fine. So that is lactational amenorrhea. Now, in all these 3 methods, okay, periodic abstinence, coitus interruptus, and lactational amenorrhea, if you realize side effect is 0, right? Why side effect is 0? Because we are not using any additional drug or chemical to achieve contraception. But apart from that, the risk is very high. So write down, all natural methods have high risk of failure. By failure, I mean pregnancy will happen, high risk of failure, and very low side effect, or almost nil side effect, right? So I'll make 2 things down here. So the question can come, which of the following contraceptive methods have nil side effect but high risk of failure? So you have to know one of the natural methods will be listed in the option, and that you have to select. Make sense, everyone?
Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
Very good. Now let's go to artificial methods. The artificial methods, again, are based on some principle. Now, for the natural methods, the principle was avoid. In artificial methods, the principle is barrier. Okay, to prevent. So there is a barrier. We need to make a hard barrier. That's make sure that sperm and ovum cannot fuse together. Now, barriers can be of 2 types, right? A physical barrier or a chemical barrier. So on that basis, the artificial methods, or it is also known as the barrier method. Write down, artificial method of contraception is also called the barrier method of contraception. Now it can further be divided into 2 parts: physical barrier methods and chemical barrier method. Okay. And both the methods are more or less available for both males and females. So first barrier method, let's talk about the physical ones. Okay. Inside this, A, physical barrier. And the first method is to physically not allow sperms to enter the female tract, and that is achieved by devices known as condoms. It's one of the, I should say, most successful industries in the world, where what they only did is they figured out a material, and which is, in this case, condom is made up of latex sheath. It is a rubber-like material which will not harm the internal organs or will not react with any body fluid. So that is very important. Okay. But will also not allow sperms to enter inside the female tract. Okay. It's like a hardcore barrier. Now, sperms as cells, they are microgametes. They are called micro for a reason. They are tiny. They are very, very small. Now, how will you make sure that they do not, the barrier method called condom is foolproof? Now, first, let me tell you, there is nothing known as a foolproof method, right? Even condoms are not foolproof. So every manufacturing company that produces it says that it's 95% effective. The 5% is just on if there is, what if there is a small hole, but of course they are quality checked. You cannot just leave everything to luck. But this latex sheath, one of the good features of this material is you can make it airtight. This sheath is airtight. Okay, not even air can escape through it. So if air cannot escape through it, fluid cannot, for sure. And often the word condom is associated with the male. So it's like a latex sheath that males can wear over the penile structure, but there are condoms for females as well. And that was one of the questions. They are called femidoms. Okay. It is just an opposite of a male condom. But this is the only method. Okay. So you can write down, it is made up of a very thin rubber-like latex sheath. Very thin rubber-like latex sheath used to cover the external genitalia of males and females. For males it is penis, for females it's vagina. The external genitalia of males and females. And this is the only method among all the methods that we are going to study which can prevent STDs. Okay. So this has been asked multiple times in entrances. You should make a star over this method and write it is the only method capable of preventing STDs from spreading. Okay, condoms and femidoms. No other method can prevent STD. No, none. Natural method for sure cannot prevent any STDs because they are not based on the barrier principle. But artificial methods which are based on barrier principle, all of them cannot prevent STDs because condoms are the only one which are based on physical barrier method with almost 100% separation of gametes from intermixing. Okay. And so just keeping sperms away from ovum is one thing. But nowadays, as we have more and more advanced technology, the latest condoms are designed in a way where the inner lining of that material, the latex sheath, is lined by spermicidal chemical. You can write down the inner linings of the latex sheath is coated with spermicidal chemical. Again, this chemical does not react with the normal cells of the male, so it does not cause harm as such in that time duration. But what it does, whenever the sperms are ejaculated and enter this condom, they just die, because the word spermicidal means, again, cidal is to destroy. We learned a similar word, right, yesterday, something related to cidal. What was that? What word was that? We learned some word called cidal. Side, yes, female feticide, right? So here also the word side is to destroy. Feticide, infanticide, homicide, all these words that you see or read as side or sidal is for that. So spermicidal means that kills the sperms. Okay, so that is what you have to learn about this method and keep in mind. So that is another barrier methods which are physical barrier
So,
methods. Yes, you know,
so what can go wrong with a condom? Why doesn't
the
it work?
only yes, the only thing that can go wrong with the condom is that it is punctured. That's all. That's the only thing that can go wrong. It's punctured. It has a very micro tiny hole which could not get, you know, which could not get checked or figured out during the quality check, but mostly it does not happen. Okay, but still there are very few cases where people have reported of using the condom, but still the female got inseminated and pregnant, and then it was later found that the condom had some defect. But with more and more better technology, this latex sheath, which is an artificial material, we do not find it anywhere and use it like that. It is a very processed artificial material. These are developed with more and more integrity. Okay, so they are developed to uh, um, to withstand stress. They are developed to withstand stretching, torsional stress, etc., etc. They don't tear very fast. They can extend, they can be stretched, and still they will not tear apart and leave a hole. Yeah, so the
There
only
are
thing that can, yes, you know,
there are also time when the condom rips, right?
rips apart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So with modern latex sheath materials being developed more and more, you have the advantage to make it thin. So earlier, as it developed as a material, there used to be very thick materials which also cause uneasiness for the partners who are using it. It's very uneasy. But over time, with more and more better research into the field, they can develop thinner and stronger and better materials which don't rip apart. Yes, but that's the only thing that can go wrong. Everything else is well planned for this kind of physical barrier method. Okay, yeah. And also the lining of spermicidal material adds to its effectiveness, right? It will just not store the sperm and keep it away from ovum, it will also kill the sperm which is trapped inside. Okay, now let's go to other methods. So and also again, keep in mind and rate on the basis of above 5 points. It's very highly effective. So if you let's do it for the physical method condom here, because this was a question. Is it user friendly? Yes, it is. Okay, it could be self-applied. Least side effects? Yes, it has almost no side effect when you are using it, except for the part where I told you in earlier times it used to be very thick and used to cause inflammation upon constant irritation of the lining of reproductive tract. But now, no, least side effect. Is it easily available? Yes. It is economically feasible? Yes. Is it effective? Very effective. Is it reversible? 100% reversible. All you have to do is to remove it. No effect on the sexual drive. This was the part where industry has done a lot better over time with research, that it should not feel like something. If it is too tight on the penile tissue, it will send another signal to the brain where the penile tissues will not be at ease, right? They will not feel the sexual drive. If it is too loose, there is chances of leakage. So this is the part which they have done fairly better at over time. So overall, if you see, it is one of the most ideal contraceptives to use, right? Among all the contraceptives available, I will rate coitus interruptus the least and condoms the highest. In between, everything else comes. We will know why. So let's go to the second physical barrier, which is called diaphragms. Now, diaphragms are only available for females. So we will make a small symbol here like this. Okay, this is called a female symbol. Okay, So diaphragms are for females. And what do diaphragms? Not just diaphragms, also let's talk about cervical caps, again for females, and something called vaults, again for females. So all these are basically barrier methods where a structure will be inserted inside the female tract, and it will cover the cervix during the coitus. That is the main point. Now, let me take you back to chapter 3 to show you a structure that we studied there, female reproductive system. Yes. Can you see this, everyone? I'm just telling you why diaphragms, vaults, and cervical caps work. So let me use a red color, no matter, but blue. And do you see this is vaginal tract? I'll just, if I just extend it a little, this is the vagina. This is, and you see it's very wide, right? And after this point, when you enter the cervical canal is very thin as compared to the vaginal canal, right? If you see the diameter, there is a huge difference. And that is what is the logic behind developing cervical caps, diaphragms, and vaults, because they very, very effectively go and fix themselves in this spot. They are shaped like this. Okay. So if they shape like this and fix, then entry into the cervical canal is not possible, right? Now again, they are not airtight like you will think, but still they are very effective. They are barrier methods, they are very effective, and they do not allow sperms to enter inside the cervical canal. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. But there is one catch with this method. Now I'll go back to where we are. Yes. The catch with this method is, do you realize that the fluid and the sperm is still entering the female system? It is still entering till the door of the cervix, right? So can it prevent STDs? No. If there is a virus in the semen, the virus can very easily get into any of the cells, and from there it can reach the blood, and from there it can reach anywhere and cause disease. So the virus or the bacteria or the pathogen can still enter the female system. So this, though it is a barrier method, it does not prevent STDs. The only method that prevent STDs is condom and femidoms. So write down, diaphragm, cervical cap, and vaults are also barrier methods. Where a device is inserted in the female tract, to cover the cervix during coitus. But write down, it cannot, sorry, you can write down, it can prevent the entry of sperm through the cervix. It can prevent the entry of sperm through the cervix, but it cannot prevent transmission of STDs. Now, there was one question that came in the NEET, which no one was prepared for, because we are always taught that, you know, condoms are better than diaphragms, cervical caps, and vaults, this and that and that. But what is one thing where diaphragms are better than condoms at? And that one thing is reusability. Condoms is a one-time use method. You cannot reuse condoms and femidoms. You cannot, because that is what is containing the sperms. Diaphragms, cervical caps, and vaults are reusable. That's one thing that makes them slightly better. It's reusable. Just write down that it is reusable, unlike condoms.
Is it reversible?
It is reversible. It is reversible. It's reversible, reusable, but it won't protect you from STDs. You just have to remove the device and it's reversible. Yes. Okay. Cool. Now, these were physical barrier methods, right? 1 and 2. Actually, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cervical caps and vaults. I've just clubbed all of them. But these 4 things are physical barrier methods. Now let's talk about chemical barrier methods, where you are making a chemical barrier. Now, what do we mean by chemical barrier? There are some chemicals which kill the sperm at a particular stage in that tract and do not allow it to move forward. And these are mostly done through something called intrauterine devices. As the word suggests, intra means inside, uterine means uterus, devices, because uterus is the place where implantation will happen. Remember? So we are not worried about sperms coming into the vaginal canal. We are also not worried about them going through the cervix. Let them go all the way into the uterus. Inside the uterus, they will be killed so that they cannot fertilize ovum and it cannot get implanted. Even if by chance they fertilize the ovum, still the zygote will die because there is a chemical that will kill them all. Even if zygote gets, it tries to implant itself, the whole membrane of the uterus will be very hostile to its development. So that's called IUDs, intrauterine devices. Now, what do these do? Write down. These devices are, but the problem here is it's not user friendly. So you need a doctor or a gynecologist or a nurse for it to insert it in a female system. So write down, these devices are inserted by doctors or nurses in the uterus through the vaginal canal. So no surgery, no incision is required. It can simply be inserted through the vaginal canal. Now you must be thinking, why will someone do that? Why will a female like to have a device inserted in the uterus? There must be some advantage to it, right? The advantage it is very long-term effective. So if a female is planning to not conceive pregnancy, let's say for a year, so instead of keep using femidoms or condoms over a year, instead of using diaphragm cervical vaults for a year, if you are not worried about STDs, and if the female have a single partner, the female can very well go for the chemical barrier method, which is IUD. It is a very, very successful method in family planning. The most successful method in family planning is IUD. That is write down, make a star and write down, IUDs are the most successful methods in long-term family planning. But again, they do not prevent from STDs. Okay. And IUDs are of 3 types. Again, one is, which is called, you call it non-medicated. Non-medicated means simply which do not release any chemical, but still they are IUD. So there is only one, I think, which I can remember that was slightly popular, but no one uses it right now. It's a very old method. It was developed by some person called Lipase, yes, it's called lipase loop. It's like a loop that prevent the entry of sperm into the fallopian tube. Do you make sense? If sperms will not enter the fallopian tube, they will not be able to fertilize the ovum at the site of fertilization, which is ampulla isthmus junction. Okay. It does not release any chemicals. It's simply a loop that's like prevents entry of sperm into the fallopian tube. So lipase loop. It's not popular. It's not used very much nowadays because we have better. So second is called second and third are medicated, which means they release something, but second is called copper releasing, okay, or ion releasing, IUD. So it releases copper ions, copper releasing IUD. So copper as a ion kills the sperms. Sperms cannot withstand a lot of copper ions because copper ions are positively charged, Cu2 plus. They will make the system more and more acidic, and sperms cannot withstand acidic environment, and hence copper ions will just penetrate inside the sperm, go inside and kill the sperm. And some famous examples, most of the IUDs which are used nowadays are copper releasing IUDs. You must have heard of some famous terms called copper T, CUT, and there's also something called copper 7, CU7, and one NCRT has one more example. I think it's multi-load 75, if I'm not wrong, but check it. Multi-load 375 was another copper releasing IUD. Most famous among these is CUT and CU7. Okay, multi-load has copper ions plus some other ions also, but that you don't have to worry about. But that's the second type. And the third type, again, second and third both are releasing. So third one releases some hormone. It's called hormone releasing IUDs. If you now think, you will realize everything that we know about from chapter 3, people are trying to use all the logics to prevent pregnancy, right? Starting from natural methods, we know that there is a cycle on which 14th day there is ovulation. So let's see if we can prevent pregnancy by playing around that cycle. Then when we came to artificial, first people started finding the logic. If we do not allow sperm to enter, then hence they made condoms, diaphragms, vaults and all. Then spermicidal chemicals which line the condom and even the diaphragms to kill the sperm. Then we come to chemical barrier method. They realize that, okay, even if they enter the vaginal canal, the cervix, even the uterus, if we can prevent sperm from entering the fallopian tube, it will still work. Hence came lipase loop. Second thing they thought, okay, why allow them to enter or not enter? Let's kill them in the uterus by releasing copper. So they made copper T, copper 7, multi-load. Last is, there is another way to prevent pregnancy, and that is by hormones. We already know of hormones which prevent pregnancy, like progesterone. Progesterone in a very, very high quantity will prevent pregnancy by making the uterine membrane non-dynamic. Okay, it will fix non-dynamic, so implantation won't happen. So copper releasing IUDs are called, one example is progestasert, because it's inserted inside and it releases progesterone. Progestasert, insert to release progesterone. Okay, that is the one I remember. If there are others in NCRT, just please look. I think there'll be one more, something called L. Can you look? There is one more in NCRT, something called LG20, LNG20, something like that. But I remember progestasert because the name goes with the logic. Sorry, someone is saying something.
LNG20.
LNG20, yes, LNG20. That also releases, LNG20 actually releases a mixture of progesterone and estrogen together to prevent pregnancy. Okay. And so all the IUDs work on the common principle. As a chemical barrier, what the common principle is, the copper ions, write down, for the copper releasing, write down, IUDs increase phagocytosis of sperms or killing of sperms. IUDs increases phagocytosis or killing of sperms, comma, copper ion suppresses sperm motility and viability. If the sperm cannot move properly, it cannot fertilize the ovum. Make sense? Copper ion make them slow and starts killing them. And third thing that the IUDs do is it makes the uterus hostile for implantation, unsuitable for implantation. With lots and lots of ions and hormones inside the uterus, it's not very good place now for implantation. And why I told you it is the most, IUDs are the most successful family planning devices, because it is ideal for females who want long-term contraception. Okay, write down. It is ideal for long-term contraception. So in India, there was a whole drive for females to get IUDs inserted, especially in the rural areas where people do not have access to condoms. They cannot buy and get these things. So at their medical centers, females were given incentives to get these IUDs implanted in their uterus. And they will come after 1 year or 6 months or 7 months, and they will be removed by the doctors, and then they can get a child. Then after the childbirth, again, these IUD will be put in so that they cannot have another child for the next 1 year, right? So this is how you can plan a family better using IUDs.
So,
Yes, Hiram.
so but they're very discomforting also, no?
It is so. I've just read from the books, so no uterus, no opinion of my own, but it depends again, female to female. Some females report that they constantly feel something inside their uterus. Some people, but for some females, they feel nothing. So it may be discomforting, but knowing that it is the most widely used and acceptable methods, I don't know. So I cannot answer that. I think I should figure out what is is there any study where people have asked these females if it is discomforting.
Actually, I
It
heard
looks.
that the female bleeds after you insert a copper T or something like that.
That might not be because of copper T causing any damage. So there is a misconception. Females might bleed because of their menstrual cycle is fastened. Because of release of copper, it becomes hostile, and the menses can occur earlier. So sometimes women who don't know the science behind it associate, because last week I got inserted with copper T, hence this week my bleeding came early. So they will associate it with copper T, which might not be the exact reason why they are bleeding. Copper T insertion is not damaging the membrane or causing bleeding. Okay. Because there is no incision. Yeah.
Is there any like harmful effect if the copper comes in contact with blood?
Copper comes in contact with the blood which is in the uterus, but because from the uterus there is no blood going back into the veins or the circulatory system. That way it doesn't seem to have any side effect on the system, the whole system, because whatever blood is in the uterus will ultimately shed off and go away with the menstrual cycle. It doesn't get reabsorbed. Like in estrous cycle, where the same blood gets reabsorbed, the same tissues get reabsorbed, right? I told you about the estrous cycle in non-primates, cattle, dogs, cats, and all these mammals. There, if you insert a copper T, of course, that can increase the level of copper ions in the systemic blood also. But in human females, it does not. Okay. Does that answer your question? Those are very good questions. Thank you for bringing them up here. So I think we will stop here for tonight. We are already around 10 minutes past, but it's okay. In the next class, I will try to finish this chapter with medical termination of pregnancy, and we'll talk about implants and another upcoming good contraceptive called the oral pills, oral contraceptives. Okay, we'll talk about how they function and their logic. And okay, so let's end here. I'll see you in the next class, everyone. Take care.
You put that, you
Sorry. Yes. So we are planning to do it from next week, upcoming class onwards, and we are planning something where you and Aisha also, who has missed few classes, we can do it together for both. But we'll do it. Don't worry. Okay.
No, sir. Actually, tomorrow I'm having test on that chapter, so just can you see the important questions so that I will be focusing on that too.
For chapter 3, you mean?
Yes, sir. That human reproduction.
Okay, great. So in the next class, I will share with you and everyone in the class only important questions, and I will ask the team to send all of you that document. Okay, so you will get the important questions from chapter 3 by next class. Is that okay, Maria? Okay, perfect. Your test is before next class?
Yes, sir. The test is tomorrow only.
Your test is tomorrow only.
Yes, sir.
Okay, have you received any so I give these daily assignments which I have given for chapter 3. Have you received any of that?
No, sir. I only received the last class assignment and I did that.
Okay, because you just joined, right? Okay,
Yes.
cool. So can you send a message to the team? You need the homework assignments for chapter 3, all of them. And I will also send them a reminder, so they will send you today.
Okay, sir.
Just do it right now. Just send a message to me and to the number from which you get all these communications that you need the homework assignments, homework questions from chapter 3, all of them.
Okay, sir.
Okay, cool, perfect.
So,
Okay, yes, Iram.
so my term 1 exams are approaching. So I have like the whole unit of genetics and human reproduction and sexual reproduction in plants. So this chapter, molecular basis of inheritance, really tough for me. I think most of them,
See,
I don't understand.
Okay, so for your unit test, actually, see, the problem
Not unit
is
test.
okay.
It's a term test. It's 70 mark.
So when is it?
On 1st of June.
1st of June. Okay, so I'll finish this chapter in the next class, and we will start with genetics quickly. The chapter 5th you find difficult, or chapter 6, the molecular
basis of inheritance.
I think that is chapter 6 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with molecular basis first then.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We might not be able to finish it because